Video and photo backlogs can leave you overwhelmed, exhausted, and burnt out. We've been there, and our fears of outsourcing stopped us in the past. Can you find an editor as invested in your brand as you are? Will other photographers and filmmakers we network with look down on us for not editing everything on our own? That fear of outsourcing can be detrimental to your career. That's why we love our partnership with Weditor. Their attention to details with not only our work, but also their care for their clients through all steps of the outsourcing process lets us fully step back from editing and focus on what we love, knowing our work is receiving the attention it needs. More than just editing, Weditor is passionate about demystifying the outsourcing market. Follow Weditor on Instagram at we_r_Weditor for free educational tips, tools, and resources to guide you through the insanity of today's editing market. For an even deeper dive, follow Weditor's blog at weditor.com/outsourcing.
Welcome to the We Got You podcast, a network curated for wedding photographers and filmmakers that dives deep into the strategies and tactics to transitioning a side hustle in the wedding industry into a full-time, thriving career. We're your hosts, luxury wedding filmmaker Emma K. Films and luxury destination wedding photographer Hannah Brook Photography. It wasn't too long ago that we picked up our cameras for the first time, having absolutely no idea where it would lead us. Years later, we're traveling the globe for beautiful destination weddings, build our dream lifestyles, and run multi-six-figure careers. It didn't happen overnight and it wasn't easy, but it is attainable and so worth it. And we're ready to teach you our strategies. Covering a variety of topics from both our firsthand experiences and reputable guest speakers' insights crucial for business growth, we're exploring the art of marketing within your niche, discussing effective ways to attract and retain clients, leverage social media, and build a strong online presence, and so much more. We're not shying away from talking through the challenges of the wedding industry and offering realistic solutions to navigate them successfully. We emphasize the importance of networking, establishing meaningful relationships with clients, and continuously honing one's craft to stand out in a competitive market. This is the We Got You podcast.
Hello, We Got You podcast. We are so excited that you are here with us for another Monday. It is a fresh start to the week, wherever you're listening from, in your car, driving to work. Maybe you're in the office, maybe you're at home, working from home, wherever you are, regardless of what time of day it is, we are so thankful that you're here with us. And this is honestly an episode I am so excited to air, regardless of whether you're a photographer or a videographer in the industry. This episode is for you. We're going to be talking about this week working with high-profile clients with LeReve Films. LeReve, Lindsey, Cherish, how are you both?
We're doing great.
Yeah, we're great. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're excited.
Thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. And for those of you who may not know LeReve, obviously we're going to go into more about them, but they are filmmakers, honestly, who have inspired myself since the beginning of my business and are award-winning, world-renowned filmmakers. So we're really excited because the clientele that they are working with right now is a clientele that I think a lot of people seek after. And it's really interesting because we're going to kind of talk about some of the nitty-gritty stuff today, like influencer discounts and NDAs, some of the things that aren't talked about in this industry that obviously are pretty controversial. There are difference of opinions on whether you should charge for an NDA or you shouldn't. So before we get started in this episode, just want you to know that these are our opinions. These are advice. You can take it with a grain of salt or you can listen and take it from some of the best filmmakers that I know. But we just want you to just have the opportunity to have these conversations, to be talking about NDAs, to be thinking about it. Because I think a lot of people, when they want to get into the high profile clientele or the luxury market, you may not be thinking about some of the really important factors that are a part of that market. And honestly, some of that information could steer you away or it could make you even more excited to be a part of it. So let's go ahead and get started. Lindsey, Cherish, I would love to just kind of open it up and have you both talk about, how you got started in this industry, all the details of your background. Just tell us about you.
So keep it a little short.
Yeah, we'll try and keep it short. This is a long story. We'd have to take you all the way back to 2005 when Emma was just a wee little girl. Were you even born then? In 2005?
I was a 2000s baby though. So I was 5 years old at that point.
Yeah. So when you were 5 years old, we shot our first wedding. And it was actually for a friend of mine. And I had wanted to, we were both into video and stuff like that. We were always doing slideshows for our friends that graduated high school. And I had taken classes in high school about this stuff. And we were dating, we were trying to get married, and we kind of just had this idea of like, what if we like, people always ask us to shoot their weddings. What if we like made that like a little side business, And back then I'm thinking, man, if we can get like $500 to $1,000 like for a wedding, like do one of those a week, man, that's like $4,000 maybe every month.
Really shooting for the stars there.
Yeah, we were really going big.
But it didn't become a business till like 2010.
Yeah.
I got pregnant with our first, and the job I had at the time wasn't really conducive to raising a child. And so we decided, well, what if we like actually purchase cameras, because we had just been renting cameras up until that point, and kind of invest in this video thing. We could work on the weekends, and then I could be home all week with the baby and edit. And that's kind of how that started. That's when we became LeReve, really.
Yeah, pretty much. 2010, we incorporated. She went full time. I still had another full time job. I was in the e-commerce world. Actually, my friend who we filmed his wedding for our first time, I went to work with him, and we grew and built a business together. And then I ended up having to make a choice, which was I going to pick, because kind of around 2016, 2017, LeReve really started to kind of like take off and take a lot of our time. And so between that business, and LeReve, and then being a dad, and then all these other extracurricular things that we had going on in our life, it was just a lot. So I ended up choosing Cherish. I feel like I don't say I chose the video business. I chose my wife, because I could tell she loved it so much. Like, it was very fulfilling for her. It was something we enjoyed doing together. And so, and she was always trying to get me to quit my other job anyway. She's like, come.
It only took like some champagne in Banff, Canada to get him to agree finally.
Okay, you knew exactly how to, you knew.
Yeah. We
I'm like, look what you could have all the time. Look at this beautiful scenery. You don't want to be in an office every day.
No, it was pretty nice. We were at an industry conference. We were at Engage, actually, and just like,
that was it.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I could do this. This is pretty nice. So that's kind of when I went full time, is 2018, and then we just kind of were able to work really hard, grow it from there, and kind of became what it is now. It's just kind of organically happened that way.
I love hearing that you rented cameras for like the first 5 years. I think like actually that's so cool, because we always get in our heads like there's all these right ways to start your business and how you have to do it, and here you are being like, yeah, we rented cameras for 5 years. Like that's
we rented them from the videographer that filmed our wedding too.
Yeah. If I could show you pictures and video of what that was, in 2007, it wasn't much.
Yeah, these were like the mini DV tapes. You had to put the tapes in, and then every time we had to transfer the footage to the computer, you had to literally play back every second of your recording. It wasn't just like a memory card where you could dump it. This was a long time ago. Technology has changed for the better, of course.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yep. Yeah, I couldn't even imagine having to play back every single clip before I put it on my computer. I'm like, oh, this SD card is taking so long. But it's nothing compared to that when you watch it.
I can't.
Yeah. I know.
Right. I'm
and then sometimes, because you had these FireWire cables, and you would be transferring the footage, and then you go watch it back on your computer, and like it would glitch or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
it all over
you have to like do it all over again, start that tape over, or go back and find that portion and re-upload it. It was
so all that's to say is we're old. So.
Yeah. been around the
That's
block.
what we're really getting to in this episode.
We're trying to say.
I think it's cool though to see how much the industry has evolved in literally a matter of just 20 years. I mean, it's crazy to see. But okay, so with that, I would love to kind of talk about, obviously, like you've been in this industry for a long time, which is really cool. And I think a lot of us even me, we get in our heads of where are we going to how quick can we reach this point in our career, right? And it is inspiring. You didn't start in 2005 and get into the luxury market in 2007. You've had kids, you've had another job. So many of us experience that obviously I'm not a parent and I don't understand that, but so many of us go through so many different life changes throughout our careers, and it's a lot. And I think it's just cool to hear, you've kind of been through it all, and here you are today, inside the high-end market. So I'd love to know, and honestly too, I need to preface this for the audience. I sometimes say high-end, I sometimes say luxury. I feel like the terms right now are all over the board on what we're talking about and what they mean. So you can take it for this episode as what you want to take it as. We're going to talk about high profile clientele, and I think we'll kind of specify it to that, but I just need to say that because I know right now there's a lot of different terms.
Yeah,
it's a buzzword. And I almost feel like, not to get into it, but right now I feel like, it's kind of bad to say luxury. You say luxury and someone's jumping on you for it, which is interesting. It's interesting. But anyways, I would love to know though, at what point in your career, when and kind of how did you know that you wanted to get into working for high profile clients, that you wanted to serve the luxury market? When did that kind of occur, and what did that look like for the two of you?
I don't think there was a time where we ever said, I want to shoot luxury weddings. It kind of just happened over time. When we started, we started here where we live. We're in Murrieta, which is right next to Temecula, California, which is wineries and kind of like a wedding factory, a lot of all-inclusive venues. And so we cut our teeth there, and it was great. But when you're shooting vineyards constantly, it's too much. I want to see something else. And so we decided to start networking outside of our area within California. And then, we got introduced to this destination networking, and we started going to Engage. And that kind of just opened our eyes as to what weddings could be. And it got us excited, I think, creatively, just to shoot more than what we had been up until that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't a thing. When we started going to Engage, we didn't know. And podcasts and education in the videography space, they weren't talking about, the luxury market or high profile clientele the way they are talking about it now. We just kind of fell into it. We're like, oh wow, there's these really cool weddings happening. And for us, it was more about different people we wanted to work with. Oh, it'd be so cool to work with that planner or that photographer or at that venue. And it wasn't a conscious choice of, we're going to be luxury destination wedding videographers, the way you would, think of that today. So it just kind of, again, we fell into it. It happened organically, but for us, we just kind of went in the direction that inspired us, working with different people.
And it wasn't even people that we wanted to work with. It wasn't because they were in high-end luxury weddings. It was because we had connected and really liked them as a person, and they inspired us, and we just wanted to spend more time, in their creative space. And I think that's more what it was. It wasn't really the type of events that they were doing, but who they were and what their minds worked like.
Yeah. Because of that, we've had to learn and develop and grow our brand to kind of conform to that industry. We were not, if you knew what we were doing and saying and our work and things like that, when we first started getting into this world, we're like, oh, we need to make some changes here because to kind of level up to that, that kind of world, so it just kind of happened,
Yeah. I think that's cool though. It's not I think in today's world, in our industry, and I'm even guilty of this, you think that you have to pick the niche you want to go into ahead of time and then go for it, right? And you think that, okay, I either have to choose I'm either going to be in the adventure space or I'm going to be in the luxury market. And like, obviously to some extent, like you do decide, but I think it's great that like in the beginning, like usually I'd like to say like some people are like, I know I want to be in the luxury market, so I'm going to engage. They're not thinking I'm going to go to engage to see and meet people and see who inspires us and see where I want to go from there. So I think it's cool, just kind of that journey of like, you both went in to engage not with that intention of like, we're going to go work with celebrities and we're going to, work with the high profile clientele. Obviously, you knew you wanted to raise your prices and continuously get better. But then finding those people that you really would enjoy to work with. And even that's, what we're doing with today's episode is just talking about some of these things, because we do get so in our heads that we have to choose a path. I was guilty of that before I even got into the wedding industry. Even when you're going to college, it's like, I have to choose. I have to decide when I'm 14 what I'm going to do after high school and exactly what it's going to look like and exactly my path. And then I follow that path without exploring first what excites you and who you want to work with, and then going from there. So I think that's really cool. I honestly like that perspective of, again, like a lot of people would say, oh, well, I want to be in the luxury market and then I'll go to engage. And you did it backwards. You're like, we're going to go to engage, see who we enjoy. And
we did a lot of things backwards.
Yeah. No, it's true though. And we saw this industry conference and we're like, oh, that looks really exciting.
It looked fun, honestly. Yeah. We're like, hey, if nothing else comes of this, like it's a cool experience to be part of.
And even then, like when we went, we're like, okay, there's no way we're going to work with that person or that person, but maybe we'll work with, the next, Marcy Bloom or whatever. And then it just kind of happened that we got to work with people like Marcy and other, high profile wedding planners that we love so much, So just kind of, we're, like exploring and I think it's important too, because some people you might get into this world and go, that's not for me at all.
Yeah.
Some people think they want it, and either maybe it doesn't jive with their personality or what they want to do, or they start doing these types of weddings and go, yeah, I don't want to work, that type of, and that's okay too. There's no right or wrong when it comes to that, so.
Yes. And obviously just listening to things like this help you get a better insight into what it's going to look like. Because a lot of people think that there's just this like one right way of like, oh, I'm going to raise my prices and then I'll be in the luxury market. And that's just like success. And I'll never forget, at one of my past workshops, we had a luxury wedding planner come in and talk about the luxury market and was just being super real about it. And you had half of the people there that were like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. I want to be a part of it. And then you genuinely had half of the people there that were like, I am so glad that someone came and was real with me about what this market looks like, because that is not for me, but I thought that it was. And that's okay. Yeah, it's totally okay. I mean, like it's good to figure out like this is a creative industry. We are all creatives. We are meant to be creative in what makes us happy, right? And like obviously you need to pay your bills, but like what makes you happy may not be the luxury market. It may not be the destination market. You may be like, I just want to stay in California and Los Angeles and go nowhere and like physically go nowhere.
Right. We fantasize about that all the time. Like, man, it'd be awesome if we could just do every wedding in our backyard again, because and it's funny because it's like that's the thing we didn't want to do, and why we started venturing out. But now when you do it and you travel,
it's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
It is.
And everyone's like, oh, you're so lucky. You get to travel for work. And we're like,
in the words of Cindy Novotny, luck had nothing to do with
it. Exactly. No, it's true. Like, but yeah, anytime we have like, even like a Napa wedding, which is like 8 hours away from us,
it's exciting.
We're like, oh yes, at least
we still call it a local wedding.
That's like a local wedding, for
even
us
though
now.
we're getting on a plane to go there.
Yeah, because it's just at least it's only an hour plane flight instead of 24 hours or whatever. So but there's pros and cons, of course, but
to everything.
Yeah,
we do fantasize about, oh man, it would be really nice just to sleep in my own bed tonight, and So.
It would be, I completely feel that so much. I'm just like, last year was crazy and I'm like, I want to just travel a little less. I'm like ready to settle. But okay.
Yep.
So kind of moving into what it looks like working with high profile clients. Maybe not even necessarily, I mean, obviously usually they go hand in hand of like high profile clients are typically having pretty extravagant weddings. But there are times, and we'll even talk about it a little bit more like influencer-ish, but when you're working with high profile clients for any type of wedding that they host, what would you say are 2 different things that you wish you would have known before you got into that type of clientele?
I mean, we kind of touched on it, like the traveling is a big deal. Like you have to know if you can do it. Because you have to kind of go where the money is, if you want to do these types of higher profile clients, they're having weddings all over the place.
Yeah.
They want to provide experiences. It's less about like, necessarily throwing a bunch of money around. They want to provide experiences for their friends and their wedding guests. And so they're taking them to these different locations and all around the world. And so, yeah, you have to travel, I think, if you want to kind of get into this world. And you have to, know whether or not you can handle it and realize that sometimes some weddings spend more days and hours traveling than you're actually like filming the wedding itself, know? So I would say that's one thing.
And I think not so much for us, but like we never did a lot of like direction with our couples. We weren't super involved in getting to know them ahead of the wedding before we got into the luxury space. But I think a lot of people in the videography community, they're used to that. They're used to, this advice to get to know your clients and let them get to know you and be a part of their life, because then you can tell a better story. And that's all great. But that is one thing that you won't be able to do in the ultra high end market. Not to say that's a blanket statement. There are some couples who do want to feel closer to you. But for the most part, we don't talk with our clients ahead of the wedding day. And that's not to say that they're evil people. They just don't have time. And so going into it, you have to just be more observant, listen, be aware of, the dynamics of the day. And that's going to help you tell that story later on. And, some clients, they want to spend a lot of time, with their creative team throughout the week, and others don't. Like we've had weddings where last year, like there was zero getting ready. They didn't want to do any of that. Very little portraiture. We had one couple who they didn't want any pictures at all. And so try and create a story around that. And so I think that's something that I think more people knew, that want to get into that space. Like you have to be prepared for that because it's more challenging.
Yeah. All communication typically goes through the planning team. And so if you're that type of videographer that likes to be best friends with your clients, that's a little bit more difficult. So a lot of times we're coming into these weddings and trying to like create that rapport, literally like, a day or two before the first day at the rehearsal dinner or the welcome party. We're trying to create that rapport. We've done weddings where the couple didn't want a videographer. And so we were told to try and like be as invisible as possible. That has happened before. You can hear that and go, okay, well, what is wrong with these people? But it wasn't anything. It's just, they had been to weddings where they'd seen videographer's presence was too distracting. And they just said, I don't want that. So if that's what it means to have a videographer, I don't want that. So
they're very aware of their guest experience and they don't want to detract from that. And so for high net worth clients, like that's the most important thing for them is being with the people that they love and creating a great experience for them. And if photo and video is going to take away from that, they don't want any part of it. And so it's not to be vindictive or evil, but like they're actually looking out for the people that they love the most.
Yeah.
Now, the flip side of that is they trust you typically to do your job. Like it's like, okay, they are trusting their planner to get the right vendors for them, right? Photographer, videographer. And so a lot of times, we send the video and it's like, yeah, this is great. We love it. And they're not as nitpicky, when it comes to that type of stuff, which is kind of nice. So again, there's pluses and minuses. So,
yeah. It's an interesting shift because you go from feeling like you're best friends with your clients. And I know even you both had said like it wasn't like a crazy big relationship with them before you got into the luxury market. But even like for me, like when I was doing elopements and small weddings, I was known for like building that relationship with my clients and meeting with them and helping write their timeline, right? And doing all those things to then the shift of your relationship is no longer with the couple, your relationship is with the planner. And you're not taking the same steps as you would with a client as you would with a planner. It looks different. But now in my head, it's like, how can I cherish this relationship with the planner? Because like that was my biggest reality shock was now going to weddings where I'm literally shaking their hand, giving them a hug for the first time. And that's the last time I'll communicate with them usually as well. And it's just a crazy reality, but it has allowed me so much more of an opportunity to be creative because they know I'm there to do a good job. They know they trust you. Obviously that planner, the client hired the planner so that they don't have to deal with anyone. So that's exactly why the planner's hiring you. And it just was a very, it is the pros and cons because for some people they're like, no, like part of my brand is to build the story and get to know my clients. And that's totally okay. But in the ultra luxury market, your reality, it's just the reality is you're not really going to get to build those relationships with clients. And like you said, there are those outliers, but I mean, even for me in the last year, out of the 15 clients I have, I get to maybe talk to 3 or 4 of them before the wedding day. Yep. And that's just how it goes. But again, you are allowed to be creative in so many different elements. I can go on the wedding day and be fun and creative. And you learn so much just being there present that I think a lot of people get scared of, that they're not going to know enough about the clients before the wedding weekend. But you learn a lot very quickly on a wedding weekend.
You do. Yeah. I don't think it's necessary to meet them or know them ahead of time to tell a good story either.
You're a part of the most intimate day of their life. If you don't know them after that,
right,
then that's a you problem.
Does your current client delivery system feel unexciting, limiting, and boring? Maybe you're still using good old Google Drive or Dropbox to deliver your clients' wedding films. If the answer to these is yes, it's time to level up your video delivery experience with VidFlow. VidFlow is a pay-per-use online platform that allows you to deliver fully branded websites for each of your clients. While being incredibly affordable, VidFlow is accessible on mobile, desktop, and smart TVs with included long-term hosting so that your clients can truly enjoy the entire experience when receiving their wedding films. When I first found VidFlow, it was such an easy switch that truly benefited my business substantially. With so many incredible features and options for customization and personalization, VidFlow continues to wow my clients time and time again. You can find VidFlow on Instagram or visit their website at vidflow.co. Use our code WGY20 for 20% off a yearly premium membership and level up your client experience today with VidFlow.
I want to jump into a really nitty gritty subject real quick. I want to talk about NDAs. I
can't talk about that. No. I signed an NDA. I can't talk about that.
Yeah, you're right. No.
Just kidding.
I would love to know. And for those that don't know what an NDA is, it's a non-disclosure agreement, basically stating that, and obviously NDAs can be different, but that you're not going to share any of the footage from the wedding day. You might not even be able to post it on your account ever. Really, it's just going to the client. I would love to know, because I think this industry, there's a lot of opinions that go around. What are your thoughts on NDAs? Do you charge for NDAs? Because I remember when I first got into the industry, I had a lot of people saying, don't charge for NDAs. And then I've had a lot of people saying you need to charge for an NDA. So I would just love to know your thoughts on that.
So here's the thing about NDAs is there's no 2 NDAs are equal. And I think that's why you can't put a blanket statement on an NDA. If a client says they want you to sign an NDA, you have to find out what that means.
Yeah. Does
it mean that they just want you to be private when it comes to their personal information as far as the wedding date, the wedding location, other things that may happen at the wedding that they just, don't want you to share?
No, leaking to the press.
Right.
Basically.
Leaking things to the press. Or does it mean that, you don't share any footage from or
can you share footage of the couple but not the guests? Right. Or can you share footage of decor? They're all different. And so I would say 98% of our weddings are NDA weddings. And no, we do not charge an NDA fee. We're happy with the rates that we charge, and so we don't feel the need to do so. But also, even if an NDA says you cannot post, like, that's all up to conversation after the wedding. And that's such a big goal, is to get that rapport going with the client. Like, they just want to know that they can trust you.
Mm-hmm.
They want to have the last say of what goes out into the universe, which I don't feel like there's anything wrong with that,
Right.
especially people at their level of,
They shouldn't have to pay for that,
They shouldn't have to pay for that. They shouldn't have to pay for privacy. And so there hasn't really been any weddings where we haven't been able to share at least something from it.
Yeah, even ones where we weren't allowed to share couple or guests. The wedding planners always go to bat and
because they want to share it
some
too.
sort of detail or something, and they
the
get
decor.
that approved from the client, ahead of time. And so it's always negotiable. And I think that's why we don't charge. We're charging enough, and that privacy, that level of privacy, especially with this type of clientele, should just be a given. It should just be expected. And it just puts a bad taste in someone's mouth if you're like, well, okay, you want me to sign this NDA and I'll honor that, but you have to pay me more money. Like, that's just going to make you look kind of slimy a little bit.
And on the flip side of that, like, we had a wedding just last year that was not an NDA wedding. And we shared their film, which we loved. It was still one of our favorite films that we've ever done. And they asked us to take it down out of concern for their guests. There's
Privacy.
a lot of privacy and political things. And so we said, absolutely. Did we have every right to post it? Yes. But I'm not going to be a bad person and put my foot down and say, legally, I'm allowed to. No, like, that's their wedding. It's not my wedding. It's not my wedding. It's their wedding. Yeah.
And I think that's another problem. So many videographers and photographers, they don't look at their, at some of these weddings as like people, with people with their own lives. It's just always like a product, sometimes we get this mindset where it's a product, and we're more concerned about ourselves and our business, and just remembering that, these are people with their own lives, and they have the right to privacy. And so, so we don't charge for it. Now, one difference is if a client asks for the rights to their footage. So if they want to own the rights to their footage, which we have had come up a couple times over the years, I will charge for that, because that's different. They want to own the footage, and then basically I'm releasing any sort of ownership of that. So in that case, we will charge. But for an NDA, because somebody doesn't want us to post it, or they want us to keep certain things private, that's not something we charge for.
And we don't even just get NDAs from clients, but most of the planners we work with also give us an NDA. So we're a lot of times signing 2 NDAs for these events.
Yeah. And even the venues too. Some of the venues that I've worked at in the past have put out an NDA, and they're like, we don't care if the couple tells you can post it. We don't care if the couple post it, but you are not allowed to share any footage at any point in time on your socials. And it's interesting. But honestly, because I agree with you. I feel like I've had a lot of people with so many different opinions about it in my head, and I haven't gotten to that point where I feel comfortable charging for an NDA, because I think, and I want to quote like your keywords as well, you're charging enough. It was just like a small statement in what you said earlier, but I think like that is so important for those people to remember. You're charging enough where that NDA isn't, quote unquote, like losing the marketing for you, right? And you also know that 1, this wedding is paying your bills, you're charging enough. And 2, the vendors that you're going to meet, the guests that you're going to interact with, the couple that you're serving is worth far more relationship-wise than what it would look like of you posting it on your Instagram. And I'm guilty of that too. When I first got presented with my first NDA, I was so upset mentally, because I was like, I want to post it so bad. And I realized those relationships that you get to interact with in person, those are what is going to book you more weddings, not how many viewers, how many other videographers see it on your Instagram. And so I think a lot of people, You want to have that mindset shift, regardless of whether you charge or don't charge, but just knowing the money isn't the marketing cost that you're losing from promoting it on your Instagram isn't lost. You're gaining way more by you saying, hey, yeah, I'm charging enough for this wedding. I'm going to show up. There's no cost for an NDA fee, and I'm going to work with this planner and these vendors and the couple and your clients. And what you're going to get from that referral wise is so much greater than just posting it to your Instagram.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah. Cause realistically, how much, could you charge for an NDA? I've heard 10, 20%, somewhere around there, like, is that 10 or 20%, that money? Is it really worth it compared to, like you said, those relationships,
right?
That you're going to build a good rapport with because you're taking care of the client, the couple, properly. Like that is way more valuable than just a couple $1,000s,
It's so true. So true. Okay. With that, I want to touch on one last thing before we close this episode. And I want to touch on influencer discounts. And I kind of want to touch on it maybe more so, when you first were entering into working with high profile clients. So when you were first starting to get those weddings, obviously, no, I don't want to say obviously, because a lot of people may not know. There can be influencers who want discounts, who want to promote your work on their Instagram or their socials with high followings for a discount, or maybe even doing their wedding for free. Especially when you started and you needed that content. And you're like, man, I want to showcase, obviously there's no NDA, I could work with these reality TV stars and I want to be able to post this on my Instagram. They're asking for a discount. How did you handle influencer discounts, especially when you were first starting, and versus how you handle influencer discounts now? Is there a difference?
Yeah, there is a difference. I think, our very first, well, I guess not the first one, but the first notable one was Ashley and Jared from Bachelor franchise. And we absolutely gave them a discount because it was a big deal for us. We knew it was going to be featured in People. And I think that's a big part of it. Like what kind of influence is it going to give you? And you have to consider that before you agree to any discounts. And we saw that wedding as an opportunity to level up and go, to that next tier. Work with a planner we were dying to work with, a team of creatives we wanted to work with. And so to us, it was worth it. Are every influencer wedding, are they all worth it? Maybe not. But that's a question you have to ask yourself and, consider your brand and where you want to go. That one, we just gave basically a blanket discount. Afterwards, a few years ago, I guess it was, we kind of approached it a little differently, which you can kind of talk about how we did that.
Yeah, since then, we've done a couple other influencer type client weddings and because we're a little bit more established now and honestly didn't feel that we needed it. I kind of approached it more from more of a business transaction. And because a lot of these influencers, that's their job, right? Is to be influencers and to promote products for, a price or for getting certain things for free. And so kind of the last couple times we've done it, I've said, okay, well, if we're going to give you this much of a discount, X amount of dollars off or, a free wedding, which is valued at this, what am I going to get from you? If I was a brand and I had a product and I was willing to pay you $10,000 or $5,000, what would you give that brand? How many reels would I get? How many posts would I get? And so that is kind of how we kind of have approached it as of late. It's been a couple years since we've done an influencer wedding. And again, it just depends on you. Do you think it's worth it? Where are you at in your career? But I do think it's best to approach it as kind of more like a business transaction, because that's what it is. And the relationship changes too at that point. So if you're essentially paying them, you might be giving them a discount. You're not actually writing them a check, but you're giving them a discount, which is essentially paying them. And so you're kind of like their boss or their client now at that point. You have this kind of mutual, you're each other's client. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to kind of approach it that way and go, okay, yes, I will do this because I think it's worth it, but I'm going to be giving you, this much money. What can I expect? Right. And make sure you kind of establish that.
Have it in writing.
Yeah. Have it in writing. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to get this many posts. I'm going to get this many reels. Come up with a strategy, a social media strategy. Okay. Mm-hmm. Leading up to the wedding, I'm going to be posting, we want this many posts about our company that we're going to be.
I just hired LeReve, right. Or.
And then after the wedding, how many posts am I going to get? Are we collaborating or do you have other, So I think that's good. I think it can definitely be worth it depending on where you're at in your career. Mm-hmm. At a certain point, you have to just consider is that influencer's audience, the audience that is even valuable to me anymore? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes it's yes, so that's where it's a little bit more valuable to you. So that's kind of how we approach it nowadays. And, I think there's nothing wrong with doing weddings for free or at a discount if there's a value proposition, if you're getting something of value in return. But as far as just blanket, eyeballs and on social media, that depends. It has to be the right eyeballs. It has to be the right, the right people.
It does though, because a lot of people. It's easy to say, oh, well, they have a high following, so it's going to benefit me. But is that the audience that you actually want to serve? Features, like you said, with that people feature, hey, we want to be seen by people. That is worth value to you. And even for me and getting my first features of ESPN and people, I'm like, that is worth value to me. And keeping that in mind of really looking at what an ROI would look like. For that type of clientele. But it's very refreshing hearing that because I know a lot of people would preach never give a discount. If you're giving a discount, you're doing it out of fear. But that's not all the case. And we've just talked about it. And I think it's cool to hear even from your perspective, especially with working with high profile clients. It's interesting the shift of clientele as more influencers want promotional discounts, but obviously you're going to be seen a lot, maybe a lot on their page. But I love actually writing down and having it in writing of, hey, what are these posts going to look like? Because there's a big difference of someone just posting a quick little video of a couple portrait and then you're in the tag list versus saying, hey, I got to work with LeReve and the experience was great. There's a big difference there on people actually viewing you, because if you're just buried in the tag list, odds are it's a lot harder that the people aren't going to find you.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it's funny too, because in the beginning, especially if you're just starting out and maybe – because I think there is a value to having a certain amount of followers on social media. At a certain, if you're at 500 followers, that could be hurting you. Because potential clients, they might come and say, "Oh man, 500 followers. Maybe they're just starting out. Maybe I don't trust this person." So maybe at that point, you don't care what the audience is. You just want to get a bigger audience, a bigger presence on social media. So maybe that would change what influencer you work with, and how maybe picky you are. But you have to think of it like a business owner, yes. That's a challenge for a lot of us creatives is we don't always know how to do both, but you have to learn how to do both, to be successful and approach these things like a business owner, would, so.
No, I love that. Well, thank you both so much for sharing your insights into this. I know that these are conversations that genuinely have so much value behind them, and you both are just openly talking about it. And I really, really do appreciate it. I would love to know before we close this episode what your Instagram is. We're going to put everything in the show notes, but just for maybe those who are listening in the car or who aren't looking at their phone at the moment, what is your Instagram? And do you have any educational platforms that people can follow along on?
Yeah, our Instagram is LeReve Films, LeReve Films. We, as far as educational stuff, we actually have a paid subscription available on Instagram. I think right now it's like $5 a month, and we post behind the scenes content at some of our weddings that we're allowed to, and just kind of show us, how we approach certain things. We also provide exclusive referrals to our Instagram subscribers. And I'm proud to say we've now referred close to $50,000 worth of weddings to our followers, which is kind of cool. Some of those have been even over 10K bookings. So that's probably the most educational type platform we do. We also offer mentorships and stuff like that if you're ever interested. But yeah, that's basically, am I missing anything?
No.
Yeah, that's about it. We're on Instagram for now.
Yeah. And if you don't follow them along on Instagram, you have to. I am a part of your subscriptions and can say that it is so worth so much more than $5 a month. But can also
I have it at $5 a month because it puts less pressure on me to like have to, be posting every day. Like as long as I get a few things out every month or tutorials or whatever. So
yeah,
I don't think that will ever change. But
no,
I'm glad you find the value.
Absolutely. And no, it's been such an honor having you both on the podcast. And thank you so much, everyone who is listening in this week. If you have any questions about this, we want to keep the conversation going. You can hop in our Facebook group. You can ask anything that you may have been curious about, because I can speak for anyone that if we can provide information that could help steer you in a direction that you really want and are passionate to go towards, we want to help with that. So you can jump in our Facebook group. But thank you so much for listening to another episode of the We Got You podcast, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the We Got You podcast. We would absolutely love it if you could take an extra minute to leave us a review and let us know what you think. DM us a screenshot of it and we'll send you a coffee on us. If you want access to an exclusive community, rad freebies, giveaways, and wedding referrals, then join our Facebook group today. Also, if you aren't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure that you're following along on Instagram at WeGotYou_podcast to stay up to date. We'll see you next week on the We Got You podcast.